was a young man with a bright future.
He loved to be creative, music, dancing, whatever.
He and his girlfriend were expecting their first child.
He loved her so much.
But she would be a single mother.
The neighbors heard her screaming.
He's laying on the ground,
but he was bleeding from his chest.
Is it a neighborhood rivalry gone wrong?
There was something that was brewing.
It was a ticking time bomb.
He had some run-ins with people.
It wasn't random.
It was a very volatile situation.
Or will the investigation uncover a web of deceit?
Something doesn't feel right.
Little things just didn't add up.
It was lie after lie after lie.
Until the truth finally comes out.
They're always arguing over there.
The downfall comes in the details.
You can't keep up with all the lies.
And then when you learn everything, it becomes more shocking.
This was just something that is so unfamiliar.
Something that rocks a community to its core.
July 20th, 2020. It's early Monday morning in Zahn, Illinois, a quiet community of 25,000 an hour north of Chicago.
Zahn is a little bit more rural. You can definitely see that suburban, quiet, picket fence kind of life.
There's a vibe of family when you come into town. It's close-knit.
You get that everybody knows everybody kind of feel.
But even in the quietest community, tragedy can strike.
Shortly before sunrise, a neighbor heard some loud screaming.
Waking up around 5 in the morning to screams definitely startled a lot of people.
Mama, wake up!
What's going on?
There are people screaming outside.
Okay, well, go on back to bed. I'll take care of it.
They look out the window and they see 3 people. One's laying on the ground and 2 people standing over him.
The neighbor quickly calls 911.
I was covering a midnight shift, and our dispatch sent for a report of a subject laying in the middle of the street.
When first responders arrive, they find 21-year-old Jacqueline Mora and her brother Carlos standing over another man who sprawled on the ground.
He was unresponsive, but he was bleeding from his chest.
Help him, please.
She's screaming, trying to figure out what's going on.
She's also obviously pregnant.
They're asking her what happened. She says she doesn't know.
However, she did identify the injured man as Gregory Gilmore.
He's my baby's father.
Gregory Gilmore wasn't exactly a stranger to local police.
When I started working in Zion in 2013, Gregory was a juvenile and getting into juvenile mischief and things like that.
His parents split up when he was younger, and Gregory spent his teenage years acting out.
But he'd eventually found a better outlet.
Gregory had a passion for music, and he wanted to use that gift to share with others.
Music gave him focus and a new sense of direction.
At this point, I had not really dealt with Gregory in a few years. So it was my understanding that he was turning things around, kind of moving on, kind of growing up and moving on with his life, kind of learning how to become an adult.
However, music wasn't his only passion. There was also Jacqueline.
Gregory was a good-looking guy and active in the local music scene. So there were always lots of women interested in him.
But that didn't matter because once he met Jacqueline, he knew that was his person.
Most people their age might be thinking about just dating and playing the field and not really being settled down. Yet the two of them found each other and chose each other.
Gregory brought the same passionate intensity he had for music to his relationship with Jacqueline.
Everybody knew that they were madly in love. You could see it. And he would do anything to make sure that their love lasted.
And it wouldn't be long before something put that commitment to the test.
As Jacqueline and Gregory's love story unfolds, that love grows into a child. They're pregnant.
Getting pregnant at such a young age, there's so many things to really consider.
But where some might see an obstacle, Gregory and Jacqueline saw opportunity.
Of course, they're nervous about the responsibilities ahead, but they couldn't be more excited.
They were both really looking forward to parenthood. They felt that their love could carry them through any challenge.
And by the summer of 2020, the young couple was looking forward to their baby's arrival.
Jacqueline was 7 months pregnant. Gregory was pretty excited about having his first child. That was a big thing. He was trying to plan his future to be a good dad and get things in order.
He had so much going for him.
What you got to say?
But now, after Jacqueline's screams alerted neighbors, police have arrived to find him lying on the street, covered in blood.
He had some type of large wound to his chest.
It was unclear if he'd been shot or stabbed.
But as the EMT gets to work, there's no doubt it's life-threatening.
With the location of it and the amount of blood that he appeared to be losing, it's critical at that point to get him from the street into that ambulance.
Then, as EMTs rush Gregory to the hospital, detectives arrive and try to piece together what happened.
It's really important when they get on the scene of this type of crime to speak to the witnesses.
Either of you see what happened?
No.
Jacqueline told police she found him outside like this.
But Jacqueline does know someone who might have reason to hurt Gregory.
She said Gregory had beef with someone.
This person had possibly shot up a residence in the same area recently.
You think he may have done this?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
She doesn't know any details about him.
However, she does know one thing.
He goes by the name of Foe.
23-year-old Gregory Gilmore had a lot to look forward to in life.
He was starting to make a name for himself with his music.
And he was expecting a child with his girlfriend, 21-year-old Jacqueline Mora.
It just seemed like Gregory kind of had everything going for him at this point.
But now, Gregory's future is hanging in the balance.
Around 4:50 a.m. on July 20th, police got a 911 call reporting that a distraught woman was screaming for help.
When officers got there, they found a male laying in the street.
He was unresponsive and bleeding from a serious wound to his chest.
And they find a hysterical Jacqueline Mora standing over the love of her life.
While the police pulled Jacqueline and her brother Carlos aside, EMTs raced to save Gregory's life.
With the amount of blood loss at the scene, first responders know they needed to get Gregory to the hospital quickly.
As EMTs rushed Gregory to the hospital, detectives turned to Jacqueline to try and sort out what happened.
It was a typical night for Jacqueline and her boyfriend Gregory and her brother Carlos all hanging out together at Jacqueline's place.
What time was this?
Carlos went to bed around 4.
Around 4.
Her brother was living with her at the time.
According to Jacqueline, Gregory left not long after.
Was he walking, driving?
Driving.
She pointed to a vehicle that was outside and said that he was driving home.
But she says it wasn't long after Gregory walked out the door that she realized something was wrong.
She didn't hear Gregory's car starting.
She went and looked out of the window and saw Greg's car was still there.
Came out to check on her?
Yeah.
She thought maybe he was having engine trouble.
But the problem was much worse.
Greg! Oh my God!
She found him in the street.
Jacqueline went into shock.
He wasn't moving and there was blood everywhere.
She says she tried to drag him out of the street.
But then she noticed something.
There was a knife near Gregory.
I saw the knife and I picked it up and there was blood on it.
Where's the knife now?
I don't know. When I saw the blood, I dropped it.
Then she'd gone for help.
She goes inside and screams for her brother to wake up, and once they're both outside, Jacqueline loses it.
That's when the neighbor called 911.
You think someone was waiting outside and stabbed her?
Yeah.
And Jacqueline thinks she knows who it was, too.
Did you know anyone that may want to hurt him?
This guy, Fo, they've been having arguments and fighting a lot.
She didn't know much else about him, only that he had some sort of beef with Gregory.
Jacqueline's brother Carlos seconds his sister's suspicion that Fo is likely responsible.
Do you know what the beef was about?
No, it's been going on for a while, though.
He also mentioned that Fo had supposedly shot up a house in the neighborhood a few days earlier.
He must have thought it was our house.
He thought Gregory had been the target.
But, like his sister, he didn't see what happened to Gregory.
He said that he had already gone to bed and was asleep when his sister came back to the house screaming.
The crime scene doesn't tell detectives much about the attack either.
There's a pool of blood, along with what looks like Gregory's keys.
Detectives also located the knife that Jacqueline mentions.
There was a knife in some tall grass that was kind of adjacent to the curb.
While crime scene technicians bag the knife and keys as evidence, the detectives go door to door in the surrounding area looking for potential witnesses.
As part of the initial investigation, we'll do what's called a neighborhood canvass.
They want to talk to neighbors, anybody who may have heard anything, who may have been driving by.
The detectives don't get far before they spot what could be the key to uncovering what happened.
The neighbor had surveillance cameras mounted on their house.
Maybe it corroborates Jacqueline's story. Maybe we capture the killer.
Hoping that's the case, the detectives knock on the neighbor's door.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sorry to bother you. We see you have a surveillance camera over there.
When we're trying to get cooperation from neighbors, sometimes it can be difficult because they have to live in this community and they don't want any backlash.
Yeah.
Any way we can take a look at the footage?
However, Jacqueline's neighbor is willing to share the video with detectives.
I wouldn't know how to access it. I have to ask my kid.
Okay, well, could you give us a call as soon as you can access it?
Yes, of course.
He's an older gentleman, and his son's the one who set up the system.
Detectives leave the neighbor a card and ask him to get in touch as soon as he gets a hold of his son. Then they move on to the next house.
Police come across a woman who says that she is the one who actually made that 911 call.
Could you tell us what you saw?
Actually, I was asleep, and my son, he woke me up saying that he heard somebody screaming outside.
She says she didn't witness the stabbing.
She got up and looked outside and saw Gregory lying down. She saw Carlos and she saw Jacqueline screaming for help.
He wasn't moving.
Still, the detectives do ask the woman to bring her son down to the station later for a formal statement.
The kid is only 11, but detectives wanted to know if he saw anything before he woke up his mother.
If he did, it might be the key to solving the case, because he might be the detectives' only eyewitness.
Once they wrap up their canvass, detectives got an update on Gregory.
This is Richards.
I was notified by the hospital that he had not made it.
This case is now a homicide.
He didn't make it.
Detectives investigating the early morning stabbing that sent 23-year-old Gregory Gilmore to the hospital have just learned that they're now investigating a homicide.
They learned that Gregory sadly lost his life due to those injuries.
Detectives have identified one possible suspect, though. a man who, according to Gregory's girlfriend Jacqueline, goes by the name of Foe.
Gregory had some sort of dispute going on with this person.
Although at this point, detectives are unsure if Foe is his real name or if it's a street name.
The detectives hope that Jacqueline and her brother Carlos, who've been escorted to the precinct, can shed more light on the matter.
We knew these were the two people that were on scene and that were last with Gregory. So they needed a formal question.
When the detectives sit down with Jacqueline, she walks them back through the moments leading up to the murder.
She said they had been hanging out at her house. Gregory left, and when she didn't hear his car start, she went outside and found him bleeding in the street.
Greg?
This Foe guy. Anything else you can tell us about him?
Not really. I never met the man.
But she knew he had beef with Greg.
That's what Greg said.
Getting nowhere, the detectives turn their questions to Jacqueline and Gregory's relationship.
As a matter of procedure, they needed to rule out Jacqueline and her brother as possible suspects.
But what are supposed to be routine questions take an unexpected turn.
She's starting to say that the relationship was a little bit tumultuous.
What do you mean exactly?
He has a hard time controlling himself when he got mad.
Jacqueline confides that their relationship was sometimes abusive.
You ever call the police?
No.
She didn't feel like pressing charges because she loved Gregory. And not only that, he was the father of her child.
And she never considered ending the relationship.
She said she didn't want to lose what she had with him, the good times they had together. She'd hoped that eventually they could work through their problems.
But now, the detectives wonder if those hopes had taken a tragic turn.
This could be a case of self-defense.
He put hands on you last night?
No.
She stuck to her initial story that she found Gregory, laying in the roadway.
When the detectives move on to Carlos, he again backs up his sister's story.
Carlos's version of what happened pretty much mirrored what Jacqueline told police.
But you didn't see what happened?
No, I already gone to bed.
Carlos tells police she came and got him. She was hysterical. Something happened to Gregory. He goes outside and Gregory's on the ground, lying there, a pool of blood.
Carlos also confirms much of what his sister said about Gregory's alleged abuse.
He believed that Jacqueline and Gregory sometimes had a rough relationship.
You ever see him get violent?
Nah, he wouldn't try anything around me.
He said that he spoke to Gregory saying, "Don't harm my sister."
And he listened?
Yeah, we were cool.
Carlos got along with Gregory, but as a protective brother, he knew that anything that happened in their relationship, he was going to stand by his sister.
And this guy, Foe, he was beefing with. Anything more you can tell us about that?
Nah, all I know is what I heard.
After taking Jacqueline and Carlos's statements, the detectives do a record search, hoping to identify the mysterious Foe.
They're looking for any incidents involving Gregory that might give them a lead on his identity.
They come up empty-handed.
There was no indication that Gregory had any ongoing disputes with anyone or that he had been the target of any violent crimes recently at all.
There's also no trace of anyone who goes by Foe, even as a street name.
Although, if it is a street name, it might not show up in police records.
The records search a bust. The detectives contact Gregory's family, hoping they might know something about the alleged killer.
When police contact Gregory's family,
Hello?
they are in utter disbelief. They can't believe that something's happened to him. He was a great spirit throughout the community. He got along with everyone.
Are you sure about that? We heard he was having trouble with a guy named Foe.
The detectives asked if they knew about this faux character that maybe had it out for Gregory, but the family has no idea who this person is.
There is no one that they could think of who would want to harm him. He didn't have trouble with the law. He didn't have run-ins with the bad crowd or anything.
According to the family, there was only one source of trouble in Gregory's life: Jacqueline.
They've witnessed arguments. They've witnessed physical contact.
However, there's one big difference.
The family tells officers that Jacqueline was the aggressive one.
She had been physically violent with him.
How aggressive?
Are we talking violent?
Yeah, sometimes.
They say if anyone had the ability to do this to Gregory, it's Jacqueline.
Gregory Gilmore's father has told the detectives investigating his murder that the 23-year-old had a troubled relationship with Jacqueline Mora, the mother of his unborn child.
However, contrary to what Jacqueline told the police, Gregory's father claims that she was the abusive one.
You actually witnessed this abuse from Jacqueline?
Yes.
Talking physical abuse?
Yes.
They said that this is something that they have witnessed themselves. They've witnessed arguments. They've witnessed physical contact.
We learned that Jacqueline and Gregory had had some incidents in the past, some incidents of domestic violence, as recently as a month or so before this tragedy occurred.
I seen her hit him and push him around.
There is a prevailing narrative that men can't be abused. A lot of times we have a situation to where if a man says, I'm being abused, someone is hitting me, we're treated differently. But honestly, even in the justice system, a lot of times it seems like there's more of a burden that men have to prove to show that they're being abused.
Our society assumes that men can always take care of themselves, and therefore that means that they're not hurt or victimized, although that's absolutely not true.
Domestic abuse is mostly talked about when the victim is a woman, but men are also victims. They're also survivors. They also need help. They need assistance.
One altercation Gregory's father witnessed was even disturbingly similar to the way his son was killed.
Gregory's family told us of an incident where she had stabbed him in the past that was never reported to police.
I stepped in and broke up the fight.
When was that?
About a year ago.
Greg's dad said he doesn't know what she would have done if he hadn't stepped in to break up the fight.
He had to go to the hospital to get treated, but he did not want to report that, and it was never documented anywhere.
After that, Gregory's parents had urged him to break things off with her, but he insisted that they could work things out.
I just wish you would have listened to me.
I'm sure you did everything you could.
Often in situations like this, family members will sometimes have guilt or shame or worry about, was there anything that I could do? Could I have helped? Could I have jumped in? Is there anything I could have said or done that could have changed the scenario?
Based on what they hear from Greg's dad, the detectives believe they now know how he died.
Jacqueline got angry again and took it a step further.
They're already hearing of all the reports of the arguments and lots of toxicity.
It would also explain why they can't find any trace of the mysterious foe who Jacqueline had offered up as Gregory's likely killer.
It seemed that that was just a story she made up to try and explain what may have happened to him.
The detectives hope there may be a way to prove that, too.
After detectives are done interviewing Gregory's family, they go to that initial 911 call. They contact the 11-year-old boy and his mother to try and see if he remembers any other details.
Witnesses, their memories may get worse as time goes on. So it's really important for officers to catch up with these individuals as soon as possible.
The fact that their witness is only 11 adds to the challenge.
When speaking with minors that witness a violent incident like this, you have to be very sensitive.
It's important that they don't ask questions in a way that can harm the child long term.
In the interview, the boy tells detectives he'd been in bed when he was woken up by the sound of shouting outside.
He described how he looked out the window and he saw a male and a female.
Do you know the people that were arguing next door?
Yeah, they're always arguing over there.
But this time was different.
It escalated to punches being thrown.
Or was it more than punches?
He saw the male fall.
And he said Gregory didn't get back up.
One of Jacqueline Moore's neighbors has told the detectives investigating her boyfriend's murder what happened in the moments leading up to the 911 call.
It's the same thing over and over again, every single day. It's the same thing.
The boy heard a commotion outside. He looked out the window and he saw them fighting, and then Gregory falls on the ground.
He was able to point out Jacqueline as the female that was involved and Gregory as the male.
But there's something the little boy didn't see.
He doesn't recall seeing a knife. All he knows is that he saw them fighting and he saw Gregory fall.
That makes him concerned, and he wakes up his mother.
When your son woke you up, did he say anything about a weapon?
No, but when he came running into the room, I could tell he was scared.
She looked out and she knew something was wrong.
She saw Jacqueline, Carlos, and Gregory, but Gregory was laying down.
Could you see any blood?
No. But Jackie, she was screaming and Greg wasn't moving.
That's when she called 911.
I just still can't believe she killed him.
However, before they make an arrest, the detectives would still like to find evidence that puts the knife in Jacqueline's hand.
They know that prosecutors would like to build the case on more than just the 11-year-old's testimony.
So detectives hoped that the surveillance from the neighbor across the street could fill in the gaps from the child's story.
And luckily, when detectives reach out, the neighbor's son has been able to download the video.
The quality wasn't the best. It was very grainy, but you could see Jacqueline and Gregory getting into a physical altercation in the middle of the street. And they kind of go off camera.
Then, a moment later, Greg staggers back into the camera's field of view.
He stumbles, and then they see him fall to the ground.
And he never gets up again.
The detectives suspect the actual stabbing occurred in those brief moments when Jacqueline and Gregory were off camera.
The camera doesn't lie. It shows exactly what happened. You can't put a spin on it.
But that can't stop someone from trying.
The police call Jacqueline back into the station and they tell her, hey, is anything you've left out?
I don't think so.
She stuck to her initial story. Gregory had come to her house, they were hanging out, and that eventually Gregory was gonna leave and she went back to doing what she was doing.
You're sure about that?
She was presented with that fact that there might be surveillance footage of what happened.
At that moment, she knew it was over.
Okay, we had a fight.
She started to just come clean about everything.
She said that they were inside hanging out and that her and Greg started to get into an argument.
But she claimed that it was Gregory who was angry and out of control.
So, where were you last night?
Nowhere?
Don't lie to me.
This is crazy. You're always accusing me of something.
So I grabbed the knife.
She said she grabbed a knife because Gregory had been violent with her in the past.
She just wanted to protect herself.
She told Greg he needed to leave, and he walked outside.
But she also said that when Greg left, her dog had followed him out.
According to Jacqueline, that's when things escalated.
She heard one of her dogs yelp. She went outside and saw Gregory hitting one of her dogs. She told Gregory to stop.
And that's when the argument started all over again.
Don't you be hitting my dog!
Oh, you want me to hit something else?
She said that Greg made some threatening statements towards her and started walking at her.
It was a fatal mistake.
She says in that moment, she just acted with rage and emotions, and she admits that she stabbed Gregory in the chest.
And he tried to hit me. I'm so tired of it.
She didn't come out and completely say that she stabbed him in, quote, self-defense, but that was what she was alluding to.
She also says that she panicked once she saw Gregory on the ground with blood gushing from his chest.
She realized, oh my God, what did I do?
Then she went back inside and she told her brother what happened. He told her she needed to call the police.
Even though she didn't want to, he said that this was something that she had to do.
But Jacqueline says that when the time to tell the truth came, she couldn't.
She said she just couldn't follow his advice.
She makes up a story. She makes up a person that Gregory had some type of shady dealings with. And that person, Foe, was the one who actually did this to Gregory. All not true. All made up.
When someone does something and didn't really think it through, they have to figure out what kind of lies can I now come up with. And unfortunately, that snowballs, where often you can't keep up with all the lies.
Now the detectives need to figure out if she's still lying.
Part of Jacqueline's statement was that she felt threatened by Gregory. That's something that can be argued by a defendant. So it's critical to look into that and figure out, was there a history of abuse or not?
According to Jacqueline, the answer is yes.
Here, let me show you.
She says that she's got, evidence of marks on herself and things like that.
And she has it all saved on her phone.
Jacqueline Moore has confessed to stabbing her boyfriend, Gregory Gilmore, but claims she did it to protect herself.
Jacqueline told police that they've had domestic abuse in their relationship. She was a battered woman and she feared for her life.
Despite the credibility issues, the fact that Jacqueline was a woman that was 7 months pregnant definitely weighed in her favor.
She also claims to have proof that Gregory was abusive on her cell phone.
Phones can be a treasure trove of information for investigators.
Can we hold on to this so we can go through it?
Yeah, of course.
After talking to Jacqueline a second time, the detectives dig deeper into her story.
We obtained phone records, social media records, and downloaded cell phones, both belonging to Jacqueline and Gregory, to try to either confirm or deny her claims of this past abuse. Because if there wasn't, then that kind of negates that claim that she would have felt threatened by Gregory or she would have needed this knife to physically defend herself.
The records do back up at least some of Jacqueline's claims.
What it showed to me was a long, very volatile relationship between the two. There was very angry messages, accusatory messages, threatening messages, back and forth.
But there is also something conspicuously absent.
Despite what you told detectives, they can't find any photos of her with injuries.
I'd never found any evidence specifically that showed Gregory abusing her, but there was definitely videos and messages that showed Jacqueline being very antagonistic and threatening.
And once Jacqueline was pregnant, their already toxic relationship only got worse.
Adding a baby now to the mix, financially as well as emotionally, there's more responsibilities, and it can cause things to start to go awry.
It was a very volatile situation between the two of them, kind of a ticking time bomb.
And early on the morning of July 20th, it exploded.
At around 1:30 that morning, Gregory texted Jacqueline asking if he could come over.
They hung out and played video games with her brother.
But at some point, an argument ensued.
So where were you last night?
Nowhere.
Don't lie to me.
She kind of displayed a lack of emotional control.
And perhaps Gregory had finally had enough.
This is crazy. You're always accusing me of something.
There was indicators that this was going to continue to get worse and continue to escalate and continue to escalate.
You're always lying.
That's what the detectives believe happened in this case.
Based on their surveillance video, Gregory left, and Jacqueline followed him outside, clutching a knife.
Greg, don't you walk away from me. Stop.
Man.
Don't you? Why are you doing this to me?
It's the same thing every single day and over and over again. Man, stop touching me all the time, every single time. You're just crazy and paranoid.
You think I'm crazy?
Yo, Jacqueline, what are you doing, Jacqueline?
I do believe this probably was a crime of, quote, passion, or she just reacted and stabbed him.
Then after lashing out, she immediately regretted what she'd done.
Greg, baby. Oh, God.
Jacqueline definitely showed some remorse. She did appear upset by what happened.
But that didn't stop her from trying to hide what she'd done.
She woke her brother Carlos up and asked him for his help.
Call the cops. We gotta call the cops.
No!
That's a tough spot to be in. Your sister has come to you in a panic. You've told her the right thing, and you're kind of standing back to see if she'll do it. And then she doesn't.
I do feel for Carlos' situation, and anybody put in a position to where you're encouraging your family member to do the right thing, but ultimately, when they don't, you now have to make that decision. Are you gonna go along with what your family member is doing, or are you gonna tell the truth?
But will the detectives and the district attorney see it that way?
What he did by kind of going along with Jacqueline's story initially at the scene could be considered obstructive, but in this case, especially with her statement that he had told her to tell the truth, we just felt like it really wasn't in the best interest of justice to charge Carlos with a crime.
There's no such leniency towards Jacqueline.
Jacqueline was charged with first-degree murder.
But the case never goes to trial.
She took a plea deal to bring it down to second-degree murder.
The key difference between that and first degree is a lack of premeditation.
While she had followed Greg outside with a knife, they couldn't prove that she intended to stab him.
And if the case had gone to trial, there was always the possibility of acquittal.
People are used to women being the victims, right? So in a lot of people's minds, it's hard for them to be able to flip that and decide like, no, this 7-month pregnant woman was the actual abuser, the actual aggressor.
In exchange for her plea, the judge sentences Jacqueline to 15 years in prison.
First-degree murder, she would be looking at much stiffer penalties, maybe a 25 to life.
It's never enough. I don't care how many years it is, it's never enough because it's never gonna bring your loved one back. But in the end, she has to pay for what she did. Her actions resulted in the death of her child's father. And that's something she'll never be able to get away from. That's always gonna sit with her. And she'll have to explain that, unfortunately, to her child when that time comes.
And Gregory's entire family will feel the loss.
They'll never get to see Gregory again. They'll never get to spend holidays, birthdays, any type of special occasions with him again. They were robbed of growing old with Gregory.
He was only 23 years old. He had a whole life ahead of him.
He had so much going for him. He loved life. He loved making others happy. He was just getting his footing to make his mark in the world. And he just did not get that chance to do it. And it's been devastating for the community, his family. Gregory is truly going to be missed.
An evening stroll
was contacted by our dispatch center. They had received a call of a body found alongside the road.
An investigation uncovers a tale of love and unforgivable betrayal of Shakespearean proportions.
He loved that girl from the top of her head to the soles of her feet.
He had gone through some text messages on her phone and had suspicions that she may have been having a relationship with somebody.
But detectives will learn that sometimes love can unlock the darkest recesses of the human heart.
He became a little bit more aggressive. He was very jealous.
This is where it starts to become like a Coen Brothers movie. In the movies, you get away with it. In reality, you go to prison.
July 12th, 2012, 8 p.m. Gig Harbor, Washington residents John and Mary Henderson are enjoying a walk with their dog down a quiet stretch of country road.
The couple is walking their dog, and the dog veers off into this knee-high brush.
Where you going, girl? The couple went out into the brush to see what the dog was after.
Oh my God.
And they saw a body, and it contacted authorities, the Pierce County Sheriff's Department.
911, what are you reporting?
We're walking our dog, and we found a body in the bush.
Okay, we'll let the deputy in the area know. Thank you.
Within minutes, first responders are on the scene.
Hey, officer, the body's up in here. That's where we found it.
The body was about 15 feet off the main roadway. It's a black male, about 30 years old.
At first, it looks like it could be a hit-and-run accident.
A nearby wallet soon gives police a clue to the man's identity.
There was a wallet lying there with some credit cards and other identification lying around. With the credit card, they had the name Leon Bauckham on it.
Leon Bauckham was identified as a 33-year-old resident of Puyallup, Washington, which is about 30 miles from the scene.
Go ahead and start me forensics. Have Major Crimes give me a call. And I'm probably going to need a couple of other officers out here to set up a perimeter.
But what had brought Leon to this desolate patch of earth? As darkness falls on the scene, a team of investigators is about to make a startling discovery that suggests Leon Bauckham's death may be no ordinary accident.
I just don't know how you can do something like that to somebody. I just thought evil, that's all I could think.
Leon Bauckham was born on December 22nd, 1978, and named after his father.
Leon was a junior. Only the immediate family called him JR. His friends called him Leon.
But no matter what name Leon went by, the affable man with the wide smile amassed friends wherever he went.
He was a happy person. He could be serious. When it came to his family, he was very serious. But he was just a very happy person. He smiled a lot, he had a big smile, big heart.
But for Leon, family always came first, especially when it came to his grandmother, Natalie.
He and his grandmother were very close. Whenever he had something on his mind, he would go talk to his grandma.
After graduating from Stadium High School in Tacoma in 1998, Leon entered the local workforce, building a career from the ground up.
He wanted to get his own apartment, get a job, be on his own, get his own car, be his own man. So that's what he did.
Before long, Leon's winning attitude unlocked the door to the future he wanted.
He eventually got a job at Boeing, a manufacturing plant that made airplanes, and he enjoyed a very nice income at Boeing.
By 2002, Leon's good luck got even better when he met the stunning Yumiko Roberts.
You mind if I buy you a drink?
Yeah, sure.
They met at a club. Yeah, he said, I met this girl. I really like her.
I mean, he was enthralled with her. He absolutely adored her. She was everything that he wanted.
May I have your number a second? Maybe talk to you later.
Yeah, I think I like that.
From that first magical night onward, Leon and Yumiko became inseparable.
He couldn't stop talking about how beautiful she was.
Sweetheart. Yumiko was a working single mother. She worked at a telecommunications company. She did everything she could to provide for her son. And when Leon came along, he was like a father figure to that boy.
He was a great resource to that young man, and from all that I know, they got along very well.
As Yumiko and Leon's romance deepened, Leon confessed to friends and family this could be the one.
I never dreamed we'd ever laugh like this.
He loved that girl from the top of her head to the soles of her feet. I love you.
I love you more.
Those two were very affectionate towards each other. They dated for about 2 years. And around 2004, she became pregnant with Leon's child. And they started living together.
In 2005, Leon and Yumiko welcomed a beautiful baby girl into their family.
He loved the idea of being a father, so when he had his daughter, he was over the moon. He was so in love with that baby.
After Leon and Yumiko welcomed their second child, a son, in 2007, they cemented the bonds of their love affair once and for all.
In 2008, they had a gorgeous wedding. Yumiko made a stunning bride.
Afterwards, Leon spared neither effort nor expense to ensure his family had everything they wanted.
Leon found a home in a neighborhood that he wanted to raise his family. He was just so proud of it.
With a happy family and a beautiful house, Leon seemed to be living the life he always imagined. But on a warm July night in 2012, 10 years after Leon and Yumiko first met, that dream life came crashing down. As investigators arrive at the scene, they're about to discover that there's much more to this tragic case than meets the eye.
I couldn't even think of who would do that to you. That's all I could think, is why.
It's a quiet Thursday evening in Gig Harbor, Washington, when a couple walking their dog finds 33-year-old Leon Bachum's lifeless body.
The area where Leon's body was located, it's very rural. There's a gravel road there where there's brush that's overgrown.
Pierce County Sheriff's Detective Mark Murad is at his desk in nearby Tacoma when the call comes in.
Murad, this is it. I'll be right there. Got a body. Get him.
I responded to the scene. The initial thought from the deputies at the scene was that the person possibly had been hit by a car.
But as Detective Murad takes a closer look at the victim, it's obvious this is no accident.
He had white duct tape wrapped around his ankles and his wrist and around his head, which was covering his eyes. This subject had been shot one time in the back, around the shoulder blade area.
Based on the condition of his body, they believe that his death occurred in the last 24 hours.
Now that this investigation is officially a homicide, Detective Murad and his team begin sifting through the dense vegetation for evidence.
Where Leon's body was found, we actually found, I believe there were 3 peanut packaging styrofoam pieces. We also found at the scene a Dora the Explorer card.
Were these items simply roadside debris, or a possible link to Leon's killer? At this point, no one knows. Authorities deliver the tragic news to Leon's family.
Yes, ma'am. This is Detective Murad. We believe we have found your son deceased in the woods this evening.
When I heard those words, I remember that I screamed, "What happened? Where is he?" And then I don't remember much after that.
I just couldn't believe he was gone. I just couldn't believe it. Who would want to do something like that to someone like Leon?
While the hurt and anger is more than Leon's friends and family can bear, by the time detectives contact Leon's wife, Yumiko, at her home the following morning, they're already pursuing a potential lead.
Detective Sergeant Adamson found that Leon Bachum had actually been arrested a few months prior in relation to a domestic violence incident involving his wife.
Sorry to have to ask you about this in your difficult time, but
Did you and Leon have any marriage difficulties?
Yes. Yes, we were having problems, but I loved him. I can't believe he's gone.
Yumiko describes the event that put Leon at odds with the law a few months earlier. It all started one night after Yumiko had put the children to bed.
Memorial Day weekend, Yumiko and Leon get into a really big fight.
Yumiko! Yumiko!
Leon has discovered text messages on Yumiko's phone.
Man, who is this? Who's texting you?
Are you going through my phone?
Who the hell is texting you this time of night? You tell me who's texting you. He had become suspicious that Yumiko was having a relationship with someone.
That is just my friend from work. Why are you going through my phone? The text messages are from a guy that Yumiko works with. And when you read the text messages, it definitely seems like she's having an affair with this guy.
Yumiko says the argument escalated until Leon did the unthinkable.
Leon had struck her in the face, allegedly breaking some sort of a facial bone she had to go to the hospital for.
Yumiko claims when her mother, Jackie, found out what happened, she couldn't let such an offense go unpunished.
I can't believe Leon hit you. I treated that boy like my own son, and he does this to you. He was just angry. No, that's no excuse. Jackie is furious. They get to the house. Yumiko goes inside, and Jackie decides to call the police.
Leon was arrested for that domestic violence incident. The court issued a no contact order prohibiting from being at the shared residence.
But Yumiko says in the days and weeks that followed, Leon apologized for his behavior, and they agreed to try to work things out.
Yumiko did tell us that she allowed Leon to stay there on occasion. Sometimes he would stay at his grandmother's place in Tacoma, but half of the time he was staying with her.
According to Yumiko, her relationship with her husband seemed on the mend until the morning of July 11th, 2012.
That morning, when she was getting ready to go to work, Leon confronted her about the way she was dressed.
Like, who wears that to work? He's trying to get off 85 because you've been texting that guy at work. I'm not stupid, Yumiko.
She decided that when she got off work, that she was going to take the 3 kids and herself up to a Comfort Inn in Federal Way area and spend the night in order to avoid any conflict with Leon.
But the following day, Yumiko says Leon was nowhere to be found. When detectives ask Yumiko if she knows why Leon may have been in remote Gig Harbor, her answer surprises them.
Yumiko's parents' house, Jackie and Nathaniel Ray's house, was about a mile north of the location where the body was found.
Were they home that night?
No, they were out camping. That's why this doesn't make any sense.
Yumiko told us that her parents got to the Potholes, which is Moses Lake area of Washington.
She says, my mother was with my father on a camping trip. They left on Tuesday.
Investigators wrap up their interview with Yumiko, but not before asking the one question now burning on everyone's mind.
Did you have anything to do with Leon's murder?
No, I loved him.
Well, thank you very much. We've taken up enough of your time.
Whether Yumiko's statement is the truth remains to be seen. But as detectives widen the scope of their inquiries, they will begin to uncover new details that indicate dark forces at play.
When Leon's Cadillac Escalade is found at the apartment complex where his grandmother lives, this tells police this was not a random crime.
July 13th, 2012. Less than 24 hours after Leon Bachum's body was found along a remote roadside in Gig Harbor, Washington, local authorities are trying to piece together a timeline. They interview Leon's grandmother, Natalie Lee, who often hosted Leon overnight.
I'd like to ask you a couple questions about Leon, if I can.
Leon told his grandmother he'd be staying with her Wednesday, July 11th, and that's what she told police, but she says she never saw him that night, and he didn't show up.
When Natalie got up to go to work at 5:30 in the morning on Thursday, she noticed that Leon's Escalade was not parked in the parking lot of the complex.
Natalie says she tried to reach Leon, but never got a hold of him. And when she returned from work that evening, she noticed something strange.
His vehicle was not present at their house the night before he was killed or the night he was killed. And then after the homicide, it was parked out in the parking lot.
For law enforcement, the implications are serious. Had Leon's murder been carefully planned by someone familiar with his habits?
Whoever did this knew Leon. They knew that if he was at his grandmother's house, he was probably spending the night away from his marital home.
Investigators start with Yumiko's mother and stepfather, whose home is located a mile from where Leon's body was found.
Thanks for coming out. I got a couple questions for you.
I ended up contacting Nathaniel and Jackie Rape and arranged for them to come down to our office for an interview.
When the Rays speak to investigators, they corroborate Yumiko's statement that they'd been camping 200 miles away at Moses Lake.
Yumiko called me in the middle of the night and told me what happened. I was just devastated to hear about Leon.
Jackie wanted to come right back home, but the weather was terrible. So I said, let's just wait until it lets up.
So we ended up driving back the next morning.
It sounds like Jackie and Nathaniel were both pretty torn up about what happened.
But as investigators listen to the couple's account, they learn something interesting. Apparently, Jackie and Nathaniel didn't arrive at Moses Lake together.
We were supposed to go together, but Yumiko called me and told me that she and Leon had a fight Wednesday morning, and that she and the kids were going to stay in a hotel. Now, Jackie, her mother, is supposed to be on vacation, but she needs to take care of Yumiko. She goes to the hotel, she checks Yumiko and the kids in, pays for the hotel, and that's where Yumiko is for the entire evening on July the 11th. So I ended up driving up to the lake the next day. Yumiko called me that night. It was heartbreaking, even though my daughter and Leon had their problems.
She was honest with us, and she said that Leon wasn't her favorite person. She had concerns, especially after the domestic violence incident a couple months prior.
Thank you for your time.
But when detectives review Yumiko and Jackie Ray's statements, they note a significant discrepancy.
Yumiko's statement that Jackie had already left to go to the campsite with her husband isn't true, because Jackie was with her the day that she checked her into the hotel on Wednesday, July the 11th. So this isn't true, and it makes police wonder, what is it that Yumiko knows?
Detectives subpoena Yumiko's cell phone records and find out that Leon's suspicions of her infidelity may have been justified.
They say she's texting her coworker, and while the nature of the communication is inconclusive, it's the timing of the text that gives detectives pause.
Before Leon was killed, Yumiko was actually talking to a coworker. During the time that the murder was taking place, there is no communication between Yumiko and the coworker. After Leon is murdered, communication resumes. So this is very curious.
Even more significant is that according to cell phone tower signals, Yumiko's phone was nowhere near the Comfort Inn in Federal Way on the night of July 11th.
They are able to place her phone in the vicinity of Gig Harbor, where Leon's body was found.
The police are wondering if Yumiko could be involved. Did she want Leon out of the picture so that she could pursue this relationship with the coworker?
Naturally, one person of interest is the man Leon believed Yumiko was having an affair with, her coworker, Michael Brooks. According to Leon's mother, her daughter-in-law's alleged infidelities blindsided her son.
My son called me in tears, and he said that he felt betrayed. He felt like he had given her everything.
Levon says the revelation made her son more determined than ever to fight for his marriage.
So he went up there and confronted this individual. And this individual basically said to him, she's your wife. I know she's your wife, but I don't care.
But you don't care. You say, I will be back. Oh, believe that.
He was very upset. He felt very betrayed.
For investigators, the news of a possible love triangle is certainly intriguing, and one well worth investigating.
When you start to get your scent that something is awry, you have to follow your nose. More often than not, it's going to lead you somewhere, and it may not always be pretty.
Of 33-year-old Leon Bacham, authorities in Washington state are still pondering the possibilities.
There were allegations of an affair between Leon's wife and her co-worker, Michael Brooks. So certainly that was an avenue that had to be investigated.
But when police sit down with Michael, he denies having anything to do with Leon's death.
Look, man, I wasn't anywhere near Gig Harbor that night. I had nothing to do with this death, okay?
All right. Well, we're gonna go verify your alibi.
Hold on a second. Okay.
When police check out Michael's alibi, it seems airtight. His cell phone is pinpointed far from Gig Harbor, and through witnesses, police were able to confirm he was nowhere in the vicinity the night Leon died.
But what's Yumiko's alibi? For that, detectives turn to her 16-year-old half-sister, Chelsea.
What we know was that child was in fact staying with Yumiko and her children at a hotel.
Was she there the whole night with you?
Yes. She did step out for dinner, but it was only for about 20 minutes or so.
Eventually, they rule Yumiko out because Yumiko was at the hotel with her children on the day that Leon was murdered.
Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
But just when it seems like their leads are drying up, a new one comes forward in the form of Leon Bachman's close friend, Jeffrey Harris.
Jeffrey Harris, Leon's friend, is the last person to see Leon alive.
Jeffrey tells police he had seen Leon on the night of Wednesday, July 11th, and that Leon seemed upset because he couldn't find his wife and kids.
He knew when he returned home that Yumiko was no longer at the residence and began calling and texting her, trying to find out where she's at.
He starts panicking, he's frantic. Finally, he meets with a friend, Jeffrey Harris.
Man, I really appreciate it.
No problem.
But besides his family's welfare, Leon apparently had another reason to meet his friend that night.
We met about 10 p.m. that night to exchange vehicles. He had been driving my vehicle and I was driving his.
He's not supposed to be at the marital home, so he's been switching cars with his friend so that the police will not realize that he's there and he won't get arrested again.
Yumiko and Leon went to great lengths to protect themselves so that Leon wasn't arrested or charged with violations of the no contact order.
Everything all right?
Yumiko tripping at the house. Going to my grandmother's house.
Look, man, anything you need, just let me know.
Thank you.
Leon gets his Cadillac Escalade back, and now he's trying to figure out where Yumiko is.
But Jeffrey tells police when Leon pulled away that night, that's not the direction he drove.
When Leon drove off, he was actually driving in the opposite direction than if he was going to Natalie's house.
It is the last time anyone sees Leon.
If Leon didn't go to Natalie's house that night, and he didn't want to risk arrest by driving his own vehicle home, what was his destination? Soon, detectives find another of Leon's close friends, Ronald Pratt, whom is integral in solving the mystery.
His best friend Ronnie said, wow, Leon called me that night, late at night, like almost 11.
He said that Jackie had called him and told him to come out there because Yumiko was there.
He had received a call from Jackie telling him that Yumiko was at the house, that she was upset and that she had wanted to talk with him, try to work things out.
Ronald recalls that even though Leon was anxious to get out to Jackie's house and patch things up with Yumiko, he also had his suspicions.
Leon was really concerned about Jackie Ray contacting police and saying that he was violating the no contact order.
He was kind of concerned because he thought when he got out there that she might call the police and have him arrested.
He tells his friend Ron Pratt, let me drive over there and see what's going on.
That last phone contact that Ron had with Leon was close to midnight.
I ended up falling asleep. And when I woke up, I realized he hadn't called me back.
Ron became concerned about where Leon was at, whether he'd been arrested.
Ronald says that on the morning of July 12th, he reached out to the one person likely to have information about Leon's whereabouts.
Mr. Pratt contacts Yumiko the next day. She indicates that she hasn't seen Leon. She doesn't know why he would be out there and doesn't know what he's talking about.
The problem is they know Yumiko was at the Comfort Inn, but they tracked her cell phone to Gig Harbor, which according to Ronald is where Jackie Ray said Yumiko was. So they bring back Jackie and Nathaniel to try and shed some light on the issue.
On July 20th, the Rays arrived to speak with detectives once again. This time, they're accompanied by their attorney.
We have reason to believe that your son-in-law drove out to your house on Wednesday, July 11th. We have evidence that shows that Yumiko's phone was pinging off towers near your house.
She told us during her statement that she had taken Amiko's phone and left it at her house in Gig Harbor because there was knowledge that Leon had placed some sort of a tracking application on Amiko's phone. I asked Jackie if Leon ever showed up at her house that night. She explicitly denied that he had ever been there.
But as adamant as Jackie is about her story, there's one detail that's hard for detectives to overlook, and it may be the most telling of them all.
They're asking her, well, why is it that Leon was found a mile away from your home? Jackie's attorney tells her to assert her Fifth Amendment privilege. And this makes police extremely suspicious because why won't she answer that question?
Days into the investigation of Leon Bachum's death, Jackie Ray sits in front of investigators asserting she never saw her son-in-law on the night of his murder. But the location of Leon's body, as well as the statement of Leon's friend Ronald Pratt, suggests otherwise.
Why did we find his body less than a mile from your house?
One moment, please. Gentlemen, I have directed my client not to answer that question. She will be invoking her Fifth Amendment privilege.
That was the only time that her attorney interjected and said that she wouldn't be answering that question. I thought that was a little suspicious.
With Jackie asserting her Fifth Amendment rights, detectives have no choice but to conclude their interview and release her. Detectives can sense the trail is hot, but the 49-year-old grandmother and respiratory therapist hardly fits the profile of a murderer.
Miss Ray was a participant in search and rescue crews. She was a Sunday school teacher.
But when authorities subpoena Jackie's cell phone data, what they find is nothing short of shocking.
Texts from her phone indicate that during the time that Leon was driving over, she was on the phone with another phone number.
We didn't know who the subscriber of that phone was, and it talked about that night, her telling this person that Leon was on his way over.
As Leon's on his way to her house, she's texting, he's on his way, hurry up, get here.
The text messages offer a promising lead, and authorities chase it down by serving a search warrant on Jackie's house on July 27.
We actually located a couple things of interest. Outside in one of the vehicles, we found a box with some styrofoam peanut packaging.
They also find more Dora the Explorer cards in Jackie's minivan. So now they have the same evidence in Jackie's car that was at the crime scene.
But the most damning evidence isn't found by investigators. It comes from Jackie's own mouth.
Jackie, you mind if we talk to you for a second?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. We've got your cell phone records, and we've got your text the night of Leon's murder.
I pretty much dropped the bomb on her, and she was a little startled by that.
Jackie makes a very strange comment. Look, I didn't pull the trigger. Why? What do you mean you didn't pull the trigger? Well, what did you do? What part did you have in this?
Authorities leave the Ray household, but Jackie knows she's in hot water, and it isn't long before she takes destiny into her own hands.
It wasn't but A few days later, when we received a call from Jackie's attorney telling us that she was ready to give a full confession, I think she knew she was backed into a corner.
On August 1st, Jackie Ray sits down with investigators and finally comes clean.
I hired Louis Parker to kill Leon.
Louis Parker had just been released from prison. He was a friend of someone that Jackie Ray knew. He has an extensive criminal record.
She felt as though he would be the one willing to do what she needed to have done, which was having Leon killed. They had several different meetings, discussing details of how this was going to take place and how payment was going to be made.
The last place that they meet is a Starbucks. She makes the payment, makes the final payment.
Jackie explains how they lured Leon to her house on the night of July 11th.
Yumiko checked into a hotel that night with their kids because she'd gotten into it with Leon earlier in the day. And when Jackie got there, she took Yumiko's phone.
Jackie tells investigators that she convinced Yumiko to hand over her phone so that Leon wouldn't be able to track Yumiko to the hotel.
Yumiko wasn't answering her phone, so Leon called Jackie.
With her, which allowed Leon to know where that phone was based on the tracking device, and then explicitly lured him back to her house under the pretense that Yumiko was at the house and may want to talk to him that night.
Once she had Leon on the hook, Jackie set her plan's final horrible act in motion.
During the time frame that she's having that dialogue with Leon, she's also communicating with Mr. Barker saying, okay, are you going to make it out here? He's on his way.
Jackie says Leon arrived shortly before midnight at her home in Gig Harbor.
Leon pulls into Jackie's driveway, and then he hangs up. He hangs up with Ron. The worst that Leon thinks is going to happen is that he'll be arrested. He has no idea he is literally walking into a death trap.
The plan was to abduct Leon and take him somewhere else to be killed.
When he entered the home, these two guys were in the bushes outside the door. So when he walked in the door, they were right behind him, and one had a gun. Leon knew that he was in trouble, and he began to fight for his life.
This is where it starts to become like a Coen Brothers movie. As often happens with amateur crimes, it went horribly awry. It turned out he was bigger and stronger than they anticipated, and so they ended up shooting at her house.
Why did you shoot him in the house? You're gonna get blood everywhere.
The grim deed was done. Jackie provided Barker and his accomplice a tarp and duct tape to transport Leon's body away from the scene.
These hired killers bound him with duct tape. The coroner's report says my son was still breathing when they dumped him.
Jackie says later that morning she drove Leon's white Escalade back to Natalie Leith's apartment complex.
She takes Leon's white Escalade to his grandmother's house because that's where he was supposed to be staying. She leaves it there, and Luis comes and picks Jackie up, and then they leave. And they pretend none of this happened.
As for Yumiko, Jackie explains her daughter was not involved.
It turns out Yumiko really didn't know what her mother's intentions were. She had no idea what Jackie was planning to do that night.
After hearing Jackie's stunning confession, detectives take her into custody and charge her with Leon's murder. But in order to capture the men who actually committed the vile deed, authorities will have to employ a strategy right out of a Hollywood handbook.
Jackie Ray confessed she gave up herself and the shooter, and she agreed to wear a wire.
On August 1st, 2012, 49-year-old Washington grandmother Jackie Ray confessed to an unthinkable crime, hiring two men to take out her son-in-law, Leon Backham. Now, detectives need Jackie's help to catch her alleged accomplices.
During our conversation with Jackie at her attorney's office, we asked her if she'd be willing to wear a wire, have a meeting with Louis to discuss his part, agreeable to that.
A week later, on August 7th, Jackie contacts Barker and arranges a meeting, much like the ones they'd already had while planning the murder.
She set up a meeting with Lewis at a restaurant in Lakewood. She wore a wire, and the entire conversation was recorded.
At first, Barker is evasive.
Mr. Barker is sophisticated enough to know not just to discuss murder for hire in a public place, but he's willing to discuss it in an abstract way.
The police are snooping around. They come into the house and they're asking me questions.
They're all bluffs.
Lewis maintains his vague demeanor until Jackie hits on a line of questioning that sets law enforcement's headsets buzzing.
Jackie also asks him, why did you do this in my house? This was supposed to take place somewhere else. Why did you do it inside?
He launched with a gun, so we had to get him right there.
Two of our special investigation unit detectives placed him under arrest.
Although police believe an unknown accomplice still remains at large, Barker refuses to implicate him.
After Lewis's arrest, he wanted an attorney right away, so we were never able to interview him. So that third person is still out there. We don't know who that is at this point.
In the months that follow, prosecutors face another tough dilemma.
The problem that we faced with regard to Mr. Barker was that if we didn't work out a deal with Jackie Ray, we wouldn't be able to use her statements against him in the course of his trial.
So ultimately, although prosecutors believe Jackie Ray could be convicted of first-degree murder, they offer her a plea deal for second-degree murder, and she takes it.
The family was very unhappy with the second-degree murder plea. We fought long and hard with the prosecutor's office to get those charges upgraded.
In my view, it was just asinine to end up with a second-degree murder charge for a contract kill.
Jackie testified against Lewis at his trial, and her testimony helped convict him. He was sentenced to 34 years for shooting and killing Leon Baucom.
But it's at Jackie's sentencing hearing on February 7th, 2014, that Leon's family is in for a surprise. When it comes time to pick sides, Leon's wife Yumiko claims her mother's actions were arguably justified.
She was allowed to speak, and she was really caught in a difficult position because she's lost her husband. At the same time, her mother is the person who is responsible for his death. But she defends her mother. She tells the court that her mother was just trying to protect her. Yumiko got up and said that she had been afraid for herself and her children.
For Leon's family, Yumiko's statement feels like a betrayal.
You could have heard a pin drop. Because that is the biggest lie. As they say, the biggest lie since the devil learned to talk. When were you afraid for your life? When were your children's lives ever threatened?
But when Jackie makes her statement before the court, she confirms that fear is what motivated her actions.
Jackie said to the court that she acted because she was afraid that her daughter was in danger. In continuing danger, she felt that this was the only way that she could protect her daughter.
But Leon's family asserts in their victim's impact statement that at least part of Jackie Ray's story is false.
The lie was that Leon was a serial abuser of his wife. That was the lie.
Yumiko never came forward with any other instances of domestic violence. She was attempting to reconcile with Leon, by all accounts.
Prosecutors insist that what this case is really about is obsessive motherly control.
The motivating factor in hiring Lewis Barker to kill Leon was not fear for her daughter. She wanted that relationship over.
She just didn't like the man. Jackie was one of these mother-in-laws that had a key to his home, would go to his home when she felt like it, would disrespect him in his home, boss him around in his home. She basically was one of those nightmare mother-in-laws.
After hearing both sides, the judge ultimately sides with prosecutors.
Jackie was sentenced to 18 years in prison.
18 years is not enough. I believe that Jackie is the monster. For as much as she tried to portray my son as this horrible, mean person, Your daughter was happy and well cared for and loved. Your grandchildren were well cared for and loved. But my son was mistreated. My son was harassed. And ultimately, my son was murdered. So who's the monster? My son was not the monster.
She had a great family and a solid career.
She had just got that promotion. She had a great relationship with a new boyfriend.
He was perfect for my sister.
But in the blink of an eye, everything changed.
She didn't come home. It's my daughter. This is not like her. This is not her character.
Was she carrying a dark secret?
She was so drawn into him like a moth to a flame.
Detectives would soon uncover a complex web of lies.
There was a sex tape that was made.
You have a man in a skeleton mask.
Love is not supposed to hurt. Love is not supposed to take someone's life.
December 14th, 2015. It's a chilly Monday morning in Detroit, Michigan, and downtown is bustling with an energy that would have been unthinkable a few years earlier.
We've been through some tough times, but we're on the uprise.
Detroit is this comeback city right now, and it's been a long time in the making.
While many are out on their morning commute, a sanitation worker in the Brightmoor area is making his rounds.
This area is a residential area. It just consists of homes, single-family homes, some vacant dwellings and vacant lots.
In front of one of these vacant houses, the sanitation worker comes across an oddly placed garbage container. As the worker attempts to roll the can, he notices it is unusually heavy.
It was obvious someone had put something more than just household garbage in there.
When the worker lifts the lid, he's met with a terrifying sight.
There is the body of a deceased female.
The worker immediately runs back to his truck to call 911.
That call comes into me. I alert my team, and we then head out to the location.
When detectives arrive to examine the body, there is little evidence to suggest just how the victim died.
There was no obvious signs of trauma at the time, but we believe we were investigating a homicide.
She obviously did not place herself inside a trash bin.
Who was this woman? Detectives believe they know the answer.
Police had spent the last 3 days searching for a woman named Kajavia Globe.
But no one had heard from her.
Is this Kajavia Globe? And if so, what led to her tragic death? 24-year-old Kajavia Globe was part of a tight-knit family of strong women.
Kajavia was the big sister. You know, she looked out for her sister. She was very overprotected over her sister. I needed that as me being a single parent because I didn't have to worry. Kajavia was a mother figure in school. We did everything together. Couldn't tear us apart. She was my best friend. You could confide into Kajavia about anything.
With the support of her family, Kajavia was thriving in her professional life.
She was working at a telemarketing firm and had just been promoted to project manager. She was a leader over there. So anyone coming to her, she would teach them the software and everything. So she was really excited about it.
She wasn't going to let anything or anyone prevent her from achieving the goals that she had.
Charles wanted to reach for the stars. She was like, oh, I'm going to grow with this company. I'm going to dance to the fullest.
Focused on her successful career, Kajavia wasn't looking for love, but but couldn't deny the chemistry she had with coworker, 37-year-old John Black.
She was a guy magnet. She was popping, fly. They would always go out on dates. He always took her to nice places, and she just was like, he treats me like a queen.
Why are you so good to me?
Because you deserve it.
After a 6-week romance, the couple had become inseparable, and John asked Kajavia to move in.
He was treating her well. She always talked about him.
She was just happy, full of joy.
However, on the night of December 11th, 2015, Kajavia's sister receives a distressing phone call from John Black.
I had just walked in the house from having dinner. Hello?
Yeah, Adriana? Yes, John. Is Xavier with you?
No, she's not. Why? He said she didn't make it home.
She's supposed to be here hours ago.
She's not answering her phone?
No, that's why I'm calling you. She's supposed to be
It's
here
unlike her to not call or to be, answering the phone.
Look, please give me a call once you talk to her.
Will do.
Several hours pass, and there is still no word from Kajavia.
It's completely out of character for her to just go missing.
I'm calling her phone. Her sister's calling her phone. Everyone is calling her phone.
The following morning, there is still no sign of Kajavia, and her family becomes increasingly alarmed.
We waited till the sun rose, and we went to the police station.
I was sitting at my desk, and a lady and her children come in. She was very frantic, and she was upset.
I can help you.
It's my daughter. I can't find her.
Okay, how long has she been in there?
Since last night.
With adults, if you hadn't been missing for a certain period of time, then in some cases we don't take the missing report.
Generally speaking, when someone goes missing, police tend to think this could be voluntary, especially if it's an adult.
But is this one of those cases?
There has to be something you can do.
As she spoke to me, I just had this overwhelming sensation, that it's something more to this.
2 days pass, and Kajavia is still missing. That is until police respond to a 911 call and find a deceased woman matching her description.
My heart sank because I had to make that call.
Hello, Miss Blue. Yeah, this is Sergeant Bones.
When we received the phone call, and that was it. They found Kajavia's body.
With a new love blossoming and a big promotion at work, 24-year-old Kajavia Globe appeared to have a bright future ahead of her.
By all accounts, Kajavia had everything going for her.
She's sort of living her best life.
But on December 14th, 2015, 2 days after Kajavia was reported missing, her family is devastated to learn that her body has been recovered.
Kajavia's boyfriend, John Black, had called her sister on Friday the 11th and said that she hadn't come home from work.
The family's been through hell. There was no explanation as to why she would suddenly take off, and then suddenly there's a body that's been found.
Now, with her body identified, homicide detectives must piece together what happened to Kajavia Globe and why.
The evidence techs take photos, collect evidence from the trash can. There were dog hair fibers that were collected. There was also pillow fibers. It looked like the dog may have torn a pillow or a comforter apart. We also collected those fibers.
The can had been found in front of a clearly abandoned house.
They also checked the vacant house. The vacant house was boarded up, and they could see that no one had entered that house.
We conducted canvass and spoke to the neighbors, asked what they may have saw or heard.
Unfortunately, detectives are unable to find any witnesses. Their hope now is that Kajavia's body might provide the answers they need.
Kajavia's body was transported to the medical examiner to see if they could determine a cause of death.
While they wait for the forensic evidence to be processed, their next step is to talk to Kajavia's grieving family, with the hope they might help generate some leads.
Was she having any trouble with anyone, maybe at work? They had a surprise party for a promotion at work. The day before her disappearance,
she didn't appear to have any problems or anything like that at her job.
Well, how are things with her boyfriend? Any problem?
John Black? Not that I noticed. He was the one that told us she was missing.
John was calling us, trying to find out where was Kajavia at.
she was supposed to be here hours ago. He was very adamant on trying to find Kajavia.
When a woman goes missing, those closest are immediately suspects. The current husband or boyfriend or whomever that happens to be.
I thought that John had something to do with my sister's murder due to the fact that that was the man that was around her at the time.
Anybody else we should look at?
Kajavia's mother gives them the name of another man in her daughter's life. Kajavia's ex, Maxwell Brack.
Max was her first relationship. Max was Kajavia's first everything. When I initially met Max, it was a good vibe. He was a good guy.
It is. I like that one.
He made my sister happy, and my sister was always there for him. You love me, right?
You know I do. You don't love for me.
But Kajavia's family says that despite their relationship being strong, Max started showing a darker side that landed him in prison in 2011.
Maxwell was sentenced for 2 years on a gun charge. And once he was released, their relationship changed between him and Kajavia. Her sister came to me and was expressing her feelings that she didn't like how Max talked to her sister. He would demean her. He would talk to her like he was the dad instead of the boyfriend.
According to Kajavia's family, eventually the abuse allegedly became physical, and Kajavia had had enough.
Kajavia had finally left Max because she got tired of the fighting, the arguing, and she finally said, "Mom, I'm gonna leave him." And she left him. Once that breakup happened, that's when they kind of went their separate ways. Then she met John. She was just happy, full of joy.
Kajavia's mother says she had reached out to Max to find out if he'd seen Kajavia while she was still missing.
Just because they did have history. I called Max, and Max was like, he haven't seen her. Detectives now have 2 possible suspects, the ex-boyfriend and the new boyfriend.
Now we're looking at 2 individuals who may have acted or may have been involved in her death. We'll be in touch.
Detectives assure Kajavia's family they'll find her killer and make interviewing the 2 men in Kajavia's life their top priority.
We started conducting our interviews, and we went out and spoke to John Black.
Tell us about the day Kajavia went missing.
She went to work, man. Take to work party. She called me afterwards about 6:30. Said she had to run a few errands. But she never came home after that.
Any problems between you two?
No, man, I thought everything was good. Till I seen that video.
Video? What video?
John explains that when Kajavia went missing, he went through her cloud to see if she had posted any pictures or anything that would indicate where she had been. And that's when he found the video.
He found a video of her and Maxwell Brack having sex.
Detectives instantly suspect John may be hiding some facts about when he found the video, but they also wonder when it was made.
So you found this around the time she was missing?
Yes.
So she was cheating on you?
John Black provided us with that information that he suspected Kajavia was still sleeping with Maxwell Brack.
See that tattoo?
Detectives consider the possibility of a love triangle turned deadly, and that they may be face to face with Kajavia's killer.
Jealousy can be a powerful motive. With Kajavia being involved with both guys, maybe one of them let their jealousy get the best of them.
Detectives are investigating the murder of 24-year-old Kajavia Globe.
Police didn't know how she died, but they had multiple suspects on their radar. One is her ex-boyfriend, Max Brack. The other is her current live-in boyfriend, John Black.
Detectives are questioning John Black at his residence and have just learned Kajavia may have been cheating on him with Max.
John tells detectives he found out about Kajavia seeing Max again because of an explicit video he discovered.
When was the video made?
Recently.
How recent?
John says that he noticed Kajavia's new tattoo in the video, so it couldn't have been more than a few weeks old.
Kajavia has gone back to Max Brack. She's having sex with him. There's a history of violence there. Now they find out that this relationship is once again in play.
Detectives believe the video of Kajavia and Max surfacing so close to her death is not just a coincidence.
John said he found it while trying to help locate Kajavia when she was missing. But police have their doubts.
We thought maybe he was upset by that.
Detectives suggest perhaps John had flown into a jealous rage and killed Kajavia. But John claims that's simply not true.
Listen, I understand I got mad about the video. I love Kajavia. I would do anything for that woman. I seen us having kids. I seen us getting married. I loved her, man.
Detectives ask John if he has an alibi for the night Kajavia disappeared.
I was here, man, calling all of her family, trying to figure out exactly where she was. But she never showed up.
John was the one that called Kajavia's family, but his alibi is still flimsy.
Detectives end their interview with John Black, but he's not cleared from their suspect list just yet.
With any investigation, you have to follow a lead all the way until it ends. We had a couple of individuals who were in the suspect pool. We could not tell whether this was a crime of passion, whether this was a love triangle, whether this was some form of retaliation.
Back at the station, detectives look into the other man in Kajavia's life, Max Brack. They start with his arrest record.
Max had a pretty long rap sheet, including a weapons conviction where he served 2 years in prison.
We learned from Maxwell's criminal history that he had convictions for domestic violence and assault, which kind of piqued our interest.
From what we understood, this person was a violent person.
If Max was as dangerous as his record suggests, why would Kajavia keep seeing him?
She would say she wasn't talking to him anymore, she was done with him, but he would always find a way to pull her back in. You love me, right?
You love me.
He knew what to say, he knew what buttons to push to get her to reach back out to him.
After multiple attempts to find Kajavia's ex turn up empty-handed, detectives decide to put a bolo out for Max Brack.
Detectives need to talk to Max and find out what he knows. His name is coming up way too much.
In order to find out who killed Kajavia, detectives need to determine where she was the night of December 11th.
We conducted a financial transaction history for Kajavia's bank records. We found that there were some inaccuracies.
We learned that Kajavia's bank card had been used at a local ATM to withdraw money.
It was a withdrawal for $500, 8:03 p.m. on December the 11th. That is a lot of money to be withdrawn, and it's right around the time that Kajavia stopped answering her phone.
Detectives waste no time retrieving the security footage from the bank.
We requested video footage from that transaction, and in fact showed Kajavia Globe's vehicle.
However, upon closer inspection, detectives make a troubling discovery.
I think we got it.
Kajavia is nowhere to be seen in the footage.
The video footage actually showed an individual with a mask withdrawing money from the ATM.
You have a man in a skeleton mask withdrawing $500 from Kajavia's account in Kajavia's car and no sign of Kajavia.
Detectives feel confident that whoever accessed that ATM is the one who killed Kajavia.
This guy knew her passcode to her bank account.
Now detectives just have to determine who is the man behind the mask.
Again, there are only two people on detectives' radar who had this kind of access to Kajavia's personal life. John Black and Max Brack.
Detectives investigating the murder of Kajavia Globe have uncovered a startling piece of evidence.
Police recovered surveillance video showing a man wearing a skeleton mask, withdrawing $500 from Kajavia's account, and even driving her car.
Police assumed that whoever was wearing the mask was most likely the one responsible for her death.
Detectives have their suspect list narrowed down to two men, Maxwell Brack and John Black.
Detectives have spoken to Kajavia's current boyfriend, John Black, but now they need to speak with Max Brack.
While police have yet to locate Max Brack, they are able to locate Kajavia's vehicle.
It was seen down in our Brightmoor area in the western side of Detroit.
They found a purse in the back seat, and in the purse were credit cards that belonged to Kajavia.
We had learned that Kajavia had recently been promoted at her job, and when her vehicle was found, there were balloons inside.
But it's not what police find inside the vehicle that makes them take note. It's where the vehicle is found.
Her vehicle was located just a few blocks from where her body was found.
Detectives now have one more piece of the puzzle, but they don't know where she was killed.
While CSIs process Kajavia's car for physical evidence, detectives subpoena phone records and begin combing through them.
Phones are just like a fingerprint in some cases because they tell us where you were, when you were there, how long you stayed.
What they find confirms some of what they already know.
Kajavia had been in frequent contact with Max. There was almost no drop-off in her communication with him.
When the family talked to Max, he stated that he didn't see her nor talk to her.
While the phone records point to the guilt of one of the men in Kajavia's life, they also prove the innocence of another.
The phone record showed that John Black was home the entire night. He was just a concerned boyfriend.
Hey, it's John.
By all accounts, John Black, desperate for answers, he was contacting her family.
I've always been a stand-up guy, so I had to stand my ground because I didn't do anything. And if I had to face these questions, it is what it is. I didn't do that.
In fact, John had hoped to soon marry Kajavia and start a family.
I definitely saw myself marrying Kajavia in the future. It was just a matter of when, you know.
Confident John Black is not their killer, detectives are now ready to move on to their next suspect.
Based on the phone records, we were able to rule him out. So Maxwell is suspect number one on our radar.
Once we figured out that was his number in her call log and him saying that he had not contacted Kajavia in a long time, at that point I knew that Maxwell had something to do with it.
A closer inspection of Max's records gives detectives further proof that he was likely Kajavia's killer.
Maxwell Brack was in the area where her car was dumped, and he's also where her body was dumped at the time of the crime.
What about the ATM? It pinged in this area right here, 8 p.m.
That is not enough to get a warrant yet. We still need eyewitnesses that may help.
On December 16th, 2015, 2 days after Kajavia's body was found, detectives receive a surprising phone call.
We were alerted that there was a witness that potentially had information.
Kim Wilson, who lives on the street where Kajavia was found, arrives at the station to give a statement.
Expressed that there was some information that you may have.
I might be able to help you guys.
On December the 14th, she observed an individual move the garbage can from his property to across the street to be picked up.
She tells police that she had seen this guy with this dumpster, and he was sort of pacing back and forth, and then he ends up taking it and put it in front of the abandoned house.
What was it that drew your attention? Well, it was this guy taking this garbage can across to a vacant home, but he kept going back and forth.
The person who had moved the trash bin to the street and was standing around, and then also moved the trash can to the rear of the vacant home.
She gave us a description and where he lived.
You recognize him if you saw a picture of him? Come right here. Detectives pulled photographs of some random men matching the description she gave, as well as a file photo from Max Brack.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is make sure you're a good picture. And you just go through, take as much time as you need, but if you recognize the person, just let me know, all right?
And she positively identified Maxwell Brack as the person who had moved the trash can where she was found.
Thanks to Kim Wilson's statement, detectives now have enough evidence to arrest Maxwell Brack.
She was very helpful and instrumental in getting more side from Maxwell Brack.
They run the address given by Kim Wilson, but Max Brack is not listed as a resident. The home belongs to a woman named Cheryl Wolford.
So now detectives have a new name in the mix. Who is this woman, and what is her connection to Max?
Detectives immediately head to the house, prepared to take Max into custody. But when they arrive, there's no sign of him.
Can I help you?
Hello, ma'am. We have a warrant for Maxwell Brack. Is he here?
No. Is this about Kajavia?
Can we come in? So you were aware that her body was found across from here?
It is revealed at that point that her boyfriend is Maxwell Brack.
Could Cheryl Wolford have been involved in Kajavia's murder?
If Kajavia was cheating on John with Max, then that meant Max was cheating on Cheryl with Kajavia.
At this point, she's a possible suspect.
Detroit detectives now have an eyewitness that identified Max Brack as the man who left Kajavia Globe's body in a garbage container.
Maxwell Brack was Kajavia Globe's ex-boyfriend. However, they were still lovers.
Kajavia's body was found across from a house where Max Brack was staying. They have a witness saying he moved her body, but they're still not sure how she died.
Detectives have also found a potential new accomplice in the crime. Max's girlfriend, Cheryl Wolford.
Snort?
No, I just knew that her and Max were still hooking up.
How did you find out?
Yeah, I just found a video of the two of them.
The video showed Kajavia having sex with Maxwell Brack.
The fact that she not only knew about Max and Kajavia's relationship, but saw it firsthand, must have been devastating. It's also a red flag for detectives.
We believe that she may have been slighted by that and upset. And due to the proximity of where her body was found and she lived there, she was obviously a suspect to us.
Were you involved in this?
No, I was at work that night. Here's my card. You can check with my supervisor.
And what about Max? Think he's able to do something like this? Can we search your home?
Yes.
Detectives proceed to search Cheryl's home. Although they don't find obvious signs of a crime scene, they don't leave empty-handed.
We found multiple pieces of evidence that were consistent with evidence that was in the trash container.
Cheryl Wofford had a dog, and detectives knew that there were dog hairs as well as fibers from a pillow found with Kajavia's body.
You have to take a sample of this?
Okay.
Detectives take samples of the hair and fibers for forensic analysis.
With no blood evidence or proof that Cheryl was involved, detectives can't arrest her. But they still need to check her alibi to make sure she's telling the truth.
Upon returning to the station, detectives are met with surprising news. Max Brack has been apprehended.
Maxwell Brack did not come in voluntarily. Our headquarters surveillance tracked him out in Jackson, Michigan, and he was arrested.
Kajavia's family is relieved to hear the news as well.
They told me that we got him, Miss Globe. We have Max. And I just started thanking God.
He was returned back to our Detroit detention center, at which point myself and Detective Crosby conducted an interview of Mr. Brack.
When detectives sit down with Max, he doesn't appear to be concerned that he is at the center of a homicide investigation.
He's a guy that loves to hear himself talk. He's clearly a narcissist.
He's boasting about how he's used this woman for that, uses that woman for this. He pretty much kind of painted himself a womanizer.
We know you're still involved with Kajavia Glow. We have a witness who saw you move the body.
We tracked your phone.
So why'd you kill her?
That bad intel, man. Why would I kill her if I'm still hooking up with her?
He denied. And in most of those denials, our evidence refuted almost everything that he said. He played a victim role during the interview.
I don't know what y'all think happened, but I ain't do it. And I ain't saying nothing else until I speak to my lawyer.
Detectives conclude their interview and send Max back to holding.
He hired a lawyer, and his lawyer stated that he was not going to provide a statement. So we continue on with our investigation and building our case.
After their interview with Max, detectives follow up on Cheryl Wolford's alibi for the night of the murder.
She stated that she was at work that night and didn't get home until well after detectives believed Kajavia was killed.
We confirmed the information that she provided, and that's how we were able to clear her.
With another suspect cleared, and without a strong motive or cause of death, detectives feel the pressure to build their case against Max.
This was the only time that I have been involved with a homicide investigation where the cause of death has been unknown.
However, when the lab results come in for the items found at Cheryl Wolford's home, detectives believe they now have enough evidence to file murder charges.
We found multiple pieces of evidence that were consistent with evidence that was in the trash container. We sent all of that evidence off to our lab, which it was confirmed that those items were a match, even the dog hair.
Detectives submit their case to the prosecutor's office. 2 months after Kajavia Globe's body was found, Max Brack is charged with open murder.
The evidence pointed to Max, but without a cause of death, they could not file first or second-degree murder charges.
With such an unusual case, will the prosecution be able to make the charges stick, or will Max walk away a free man?
Because they didn't have a cause of death, I think he felt confident that he wouldn't be attached to it.
Max was being very arrogant. I feel like he think he had it in a bag, like he fooled everyone, and that he was going to get off.
I hate this man! This man has destroyed my family!
I feel like Kajavia stayed with Max because her heart was so forgiving. She could always forgive and overlook the situation to where she had overlooked Maxwell's abuse, to where she felt that she could possibly get through to him, that he will eventually stop. But he never stopped.
In August of 2016, prosecutors prepare their case against Max Brack for the murder of Kajavia Globe. But Max maintains his innocence.
Max claimed that even though he and Kajavia were still lovers, that didn't mean he killed her.
He said they had this sexual relationship, and that's all it was.
Maxwell told us he would have no reason to hurt or kill Kajavia.
Despite the fact that he was engaged in a sexual relationship with Kajavia at the time of her death, despite the fact that her body is found across the street from where he's living, he says he has nothing to do with this.
When Max's trial begins in late August, emotions run high as his defense begins to poke holes in the prosecution's case.
Even with all the evidence linking Max to Kajavia's body, not knowing how she died really jeopardized the case. They didn't have a cause of death.
Prosecutors also lack a clear-cut motive.
Why did this happen? Why would he kill someone he claimed to love? And we can't ask Kajavia what happened, and Max Brack is never going to admit to what happened.
I believe trying to determine the motive was one of the hardest things in this case, but everything just kept drawing them back together in this combustible relationship that eventually exploded.
Prosecutors and Kajavia's family have a theory about what happened the night Kajavia died.
The prosecution believed that Kajavia went to see Max at Cheryl's home while Cheryl was at work. They assert that Kajavia went there to end the relationship. That's when Max flew into a rage and killed her.
I don't want to do this anymore.
You said that was before already.
We're done, Max.
He knew that he couldn't control her. He couldn't get her to just pull up whenever he said he needed something. She wasn't at his beck and call no more.
It was if I can't have you, nobody can.
Despite the holes in the prosecution's case, Max's demeanor in court may have done the most damage to his defense.
When he walked into the courtroom, he kind of was just arrogant. He had this look on his face like he knew that he was innocent and he didn't have anything to do with it. He honestly thought that he was clear.
On August 31st of 2016, the jury returns their verdict.
In an open murder trial, the jury can convict on a charge that fits the evidence presented. In this case, there wasn't enough for first degree, but second degree murder still carries substantial prison time. They found Max guilty of second degree murder.
It's the news Kajavia Globe's family has been waiting for.
I was a sigh of relief. We are going to get justice for my sister.
At sentencing, the presiding judge makes sure Kajavia's family gets exactly that.
The judge gave him 70 years to 100 years behind bars.
He basically showed no emotion, and I believe that played a big role in why he was found guilty by the jury. And also, during the sentencing, he chuckled at the judge's sentencing.
In the last 10 years of that 70-year sentence, that's for the smile.
That was very powerful to see him just kind of laugh it off.
He will be there for the rest of his life.
It's just a sad situation. Both lives are done. It's like he's gonna sit in prison the rest of his life. That's not a life.
Before Max is taken away, Kajavia's mother makes a powerful statement to the court.
He knew I didn't like him when he put my baby in that dumpster. That was something to me, because I always told him in his face he was trash. I hate this man. This man has destroyed my family. This man has took something from me that he can never give it back. Never.
It was me and my 4 daughters. We don't have that in our life no more. I still have a broken heart, and I never will learn how to cope with this, because this is something that eats at me all the time.
Maybe one day he can say and own up to it that he did do that, but I don't really want to hear his answer, because inevitably he still took a life for Whatever selfish reason you want to do that for.
You never get closure. You just gotta learn to live, to deal with it. That's it.
As for John Black, the man who hoped to one day marry Kajavia, he too must find a way to carry on.
I gotta put the pieces back together. But it's not really about me in this situation. It's more about her family.
However, even in their grief, Kajavia's family hopes that her story will save others from the same tragic fate.
No one should belittle you. No one should make you feel less than them. And if you're going through it, get away. Get out. Leave and don't look back. Because somebody loves you, they're not going to hurt you. They're going to protect you. Period.